All right, so I'm going to start with the introductions. So my name is Alana and I'm from the Innovation Cluster. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Innovation Cluster, we are a not-for-profit organization and we support startups working in innovation and technology. So we do so by offering advisory services, access to partners, and workshops such as this one. I ask that everybody stays muted during the presentation unless they have a question. We encourage you to apply if you do have an innovative idea or startup working in technology, and you can do that at www.innovationcluster.ca. So again, welcome to Hands On, Unlocking Creativity for Entrepreneurs. So today you're going to be hearing from our Fast Start Program Manager and Senior Innovation Specialist, Lindsay Irwin. So today she's going to cover the importance of creativity in business innovation, ways to unlock one's creativity, how to reduce stress and break free from rigid business processes to foster creative thinking, exploring strategies to ignite and celebrate creativity, and to discover the value that creative thinking can bring to your business. So I know Lindsay has a lot to cover, so I'm going to pass it right over to her to get started.
Thank you, Alana. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and because I've been introduced, we can just kind of hit this thing and have some fun. Can everybody see that? We're good?
We can see it. It's just not in presentation mode yet.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Here we go. So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. This is a real pleasure for me to host this session because it's something I feel so strongly about and really passionate about. Unlocking your creativity comes from a piece of my heart, and it's definitely something that I think we all should be thinking about all the time. And how do we do this? And like, what does it even mean? So hi, Alana already introduced me, but I'm Lindsay Irwin. I definitely work here at the Innovation Cluster. I'm a consultant with the team. I work really closely with the post-secondary schools here in Peterborough to support the student entrepreneurs here. And also I support our clients at the Innovation Cluster. And really at the end of the day, I like to introduce myself as I'm creative. I've always been this kind of creative soul, and it shows in everything that I do. And I'll kind of explain what that means and why I say I can call myself that. So let's talk about what my goal is today. So really, I'm just hoping to keep it light for everyone so I can start talking to you about what it means to tap into your inner creativity and how to recognize that skill in yourself. I can personally assure you that learning how to leverage this creative side of your brain is something that will not only yield success for your business, but honestly, it will make you light up your everyday life. The way you make decisions with your business or in your own life, if you use this sort of a creative lens on making those choices and those movements, it will definitely yield rewards for you. And the most important thing that we need to cover quickly here is that creativity is a fundamental human instinct that we can all unlock. It's something that is inside all of us, even those who swear they don't have a creative bone in their body. This is something that's inside all of us for sure. Okay, so why do I have any credibility at all talking about creativity? So I want to acknowledge that creativity is so hot right now. There's keynotes about it. There's books being written about it. It's definitely in the narratives right now for entrepreneurship. And I love seeing it there for sure, but I have some credentials here for sure I'd like to share. Since I've been a kid, I've been went from painting in chalk to working on whiteboards. I'm super visual. I've always been creating and thinking about how to innovate things. Moving forward to who I am now, I've been working both for myself and for different organizations for the last 15 years. And I've had some really interesting employment feedback that I think points to creativity as this strength that I carry with me. And I'll share that with you in a bit. I've also opened my own business that I consider a super creative and innovative type of business. It's in social entrepreneurship, which is basically a type of business that requires you to think creatively about impact and solutions. So I'm happy to answer questions about that later on as well. But I also have a master's degree in creative publishing. So if anyone cares about the paper on the wall, there's that in my back pocket as well. So I know a thing or two about marketing and copywriting, we'll put it that way. Okay, so let's talk about my employment feedback. And maybe this is familiar to you all. When you go into a formal review with someone, with your boss or your employer, there's always these like check boxes, right? How good are you at problem solving? How organized are you? How initiative, for instance, all those different types of things that have a box, right? With a check mark or a percentage of how well you perform. There's always that kind of like, there's room for improvement space with people. For me, it was mostly in like organization, reporting, those types of things that, I just wasn't too interested in, frankly, never have been, but it's always been a part of my role. But then there was always this narrative at the end about, okay, this needs to get better, but you're so creative. And I would always think like, man, that's just like not on the form, like creativity is something everyone would say to me, like, you've got this creative streak, or I love having you with these creative ideas. And sometimes I'd get invited to things like, way below my job level or way above because of this creative brain I had. For instance, for this team I worked for, I'd be asked every year to do silly things like, plan some kind of fun Christmas party because everybody else was like not able to think of a creative thing to do. But then I'd also be given these like huge scope jobs about like, can you take this PowerPoint and make it just so much better and creative? Can you do that for me? Like I'd be asked to do these crazy things. And I kind of felt like, okay, what's happening here? These stars are aligning. My creativity is shining, but there's no way to evaluate it. And that also, so for me, that got me thinking about like, what does this mean for this skill that I have? People like it, but it doesn't mean anything. So let's talk about creativity. The enemy for us is that too often we are, our creativity is suffocated for entrepreneurs by crippling stress, tight timelines, and rigid business processes. So this obviously resonates with everyone, I'm sure, and definitely I'm open to questions during this presentation, but I will entertain those at the end as well. And also prepare yourselves, if you have a pen and paper or a phone with you, you're going to want to take some notes because I'll be asking you questions as well that you can answer for yourselves. So let's start here by talking about how we know our creativity gets crushed, right? Our stress, our tight timelines, and our rigid business processes. So what we know is true is that these very real factors that happen for all entrepreneurs tend to push it aside rather than place creativity in the driver's seat for us. Sorry, I just lost you guys there for a sec. Here we are. These very real factors trying to push it away. But the truth is, creative thinking will help every aspect of your business in every way. And definitely it helps improve your life in different ways too with decision making. So I feel like creativity is something that we need to awaken, celebrate, and foster. And there are ways to do that. And I can't wait to cover those with you. Okay, so where do we even start to talk about creativity? For me, whenever we're starting a big conversation, it always starts with, let's identify the things that we know to be true, things that we can agree on. It's always a great place to start. So number one, we know that stress is so real for entrepreneurs. And we know that it does, and it will overwhelm us at some points. For me personally, for all the entrepreneurs I've coached over the years, stress always comes into the conversation in different ways. And it's part of the risk we take, right? Like running our own businesses, even the stress we feel when we work for larger organizations. This is a part of the human experience, and it's real, and we all feel it. We also know COVID just happened, right? So number two for me is we know that COVID sucks. It's hurt our businesses. It's hurt our mental health. It's hurt our kids' educations. This list could go on and on, right? But one way to look at this in a creative way is to realize that COVID has really given us this chance to get creative with the way we work and the way we live. I for sure can say that everything's different for me now. And I think if you're wondering if this is true for you, it has to be. Like, take a minute and think about what's different for you in your life in every way since COVID, right? The way we operate our businesses, the way we make decisions, our human behaviors in public, even the fact that we're doing, most of our meetings virtual, like there's all these things happening in the framework of our lives that are different. And how we choose to kind of harness those differences is the difference between just going with the flow or using it creatively to make some decisions in your life. We also know that creativity is a fundamental human instinct. So I've We've been here before. I'm saying it again, and you'll hear it again in this presentation. This is a human instinct. We once needed it to survive, right? We had to turn those rock wheels into circles back in the Stone Age, but now we mostly need it to flourish. And that's kind of a nice place to be in the human experience, right? So we just have to find it in there and wake it up. So let me hammer this home. Creativity is a fundamental human instinct. You are creative. So this is where I'm going to ask you some questions. If it's not something I want you to answer in the comments or even out loud, this is just time for you to reflect, think about how your brain behaves, and think about, different things happening in your life and with your business. Definitely write the questions down. I'm sure Alana will, this is being recorded as well, so there's time to look at this again, and Alana could always provide the slide deck for you, but let's talk about you. So I'm interested in what really lights you up. And for me, that's about, do you dream about total schedule freedom? Is that why you want to be an entrepreneur, or why you are? Do you love the idea of working from home and being your own boss? Do you want to spend more time with your friends and family? Think about what lights you up. Are you passionate about the product or service you offer? Do you just love that thing you're working on, or that side hustle that you're building? The hobbies that you have, whatever that thing is, like, what is that thing that lights you up? And do you feel that itch to be more entrepreneurial? Do you feel that kind of shiver that I like to think entrepreneurs have, that it's time to start something new? So think about how you're feeling in that way. So the question just wondering about everyone is, what projects do you have on the go? Are you dabbling in something? Are you tinkering? Are you working really hard on your own business full time? But where is creativity in that activity, right? So is creativity in your side hustle? Is creativity in your business? Is creativity in your play? Like, where do you find creativity in your life? Where do you feel it? This is always an interesting question for our clients. So I ask you to think about little you. Let's hang for a minute with little you. Just imagine you're having a conversation with your 7-year-old self, or your 14-year-old self, or whoever that person is you want to have a conversation with. And just think about, what did you used to do for fun? What did you do for fun before it all mattered so much? Like, what did you used to do for joy? Why did you do those things, right? Think about those activities. And like, really, this is throwing ourselves back, and it's actually hard to find those answers. But it's interesting to me that children have this insane amount of creative freedom, and they do this all day long through play. And so many children have this like amazing creativity in them because there's just like no restrictions, right? They can just like make anything happen. They can imagine things. And so I find it really interesting to think about your past that way. And if there's any dots to connect, for me, for sure, there's a ton, but can you connect the dots from your past to your now? And how do you play now? Where is creativity in that action? Do you think about what you do for fun? Think about what you do for pleasure, and think about where creativity might be within that scope. I love talking about intuition, and creativity and intuition for me are expert dance partners. Your intuition is there to protect and warn you, but it's also there to pull you in the right direction, right? So intuition is that gut feeling. It's the butterflies in your stomach. It's your heartbeat accelerating. It's your sweaty palms. There's like this physiological reaction that we call intuition, and it's usually to something happening right in the moment. And creativity is the perfect pairing for that, because it allows you to create the change that your intuition is asking you to make. So if you think of it this way, intuition is like the push, and creativity is sort of that friend you meet when you get on the right path. And this creativity friend is the one with the most important and challenging question of all. Okay, but how are we going to do that? Right? So you're on this path, this new path, and creativity is saying, where do we go from here? Which path are we going to take? How are we going to trailblaze that path? Like what are the stepping stones at this point? And you create from there. And I love that. I think that intuition helps us get where we need to be and make the right choices, but creativity helps us flourish, to have a good experience and to get where we need to be. So right before I get into these questions, I'm going to challenge you to find your own creativity. I want to just invite you to lean into it. For me personally, leaning into my creative side over the last few years has really truly allowed me to grow my side hustle business, to venture into a new career path, and I've even moved to a new place. And I like to think that every single change I make in my life and in my business comes from a place of creativity versus a place of stress. And that's why we talk about stress as being this sort of problem for creativity, because it blocks creativity. But if you can try and harness it and use it as the place where you make decisions, that's a good thing. So let's talk about how you can adopt that type of mindset too, because it is definitely a sort of a mindful activity that I invite you to try. Challenge number 1, I'd like to invite you to tell more stories. So this seems very simple, I'm sure. But in marketing or in leadership, or like for real at the dinner table, storytelling is the best way to capture human attention. It's always been the ultimate creative tool. And if done with authenticity, it does become relatable and powerfully influential. Okay, so the brownies. A couple weeks ago, maybe at this point. Yeah, so a couple weeks ago, I was at a grocery store and there's these 2 guys behind me in the baking aisle, and they're talking about this bag of brownie mix. And I was not paying attention, but like sort of paying attention. And a couple of things were covered. The brownies were from the chef in Toronto, and she's a top chef. They're award-winning brownies. The guy used to work for her as the sous chef. She was an amazing person. And this like really quick exchange of a story about this product happened it wasn't even for me. I just overheard it. But they walked away, said, "See you later, man," whatever. And then I turned around and I grabbed that pack of brownies, and I made them last week and they were amazing. But the moral of the story is, I wouldn't have even thought about those brownies if I didn't hear that story. If I didn't hear the story about the person who made that product, why they're awesome, the value behind the product. And they were so overpriced. It was like so embarrassing overpriced, but I bought them. And I just realized now when I was writing this presentation that like, that's the storytelling, right? I responded to that. It felt so real for me. So just worth sharing, I thought. So storytelling in business, whether this is telling your team that the story of how you came to make that big decision, or maybe this is when you're launching a new product and this is the moment you're putting it on social media, you have to use your creativity to power a storytelling approach, whether it's with your people or with your customers. Storytelling is going to be a really creative and effective strategy for you. For me, for any of you who are parents, I'm sure this resonates with you. I relate this even to parenting and having to teach something to my daughter, because she will tune in so much better when I tell her a story about when I learned to do something that I'm trying to teach her to do. So that's sort of instead of saying, here's how to tie your shoes, this is the story of how it felt when I learned how to tie my shoes, and, how frustrating it was, and the bunny ears and the different versions, and, the way I felt after I learned how to tie them. And that it made it kind of feel better for her to learn. And we definitely had a better experience doing it that way. So, this is just storytelling with life. Storytelling and marketing. I'd like you to think about how a story makes you feel when you tell it. Right? Remember, have you ever told a story that you felt proud to tell, or that you felt really vulnerable when you told, or something that made you feel just like completely relieved to have told? Remember how stories make you feel. And remember that your audience feels that too. It will radiate from you, whether this is in person or on screen, or just through copywriting and words. It's really the difference between in when it comes to marketing, this is the creative side of it's saying buy this versus experience this with me and then buy it. Because we know that this sort of hashtag all the feels thing that's happening right now is about people wanting to feel something, right? They want it to feel real. They want it to feel familiar. So getting there, I think, is through storytelling and creativity. Let's talk about Shopify. So just this last month, Shopify published their 2022 commerce report, which talks about all the trends in e-commerce from the past year. And there's a few things worth talking about today. Number one, we know that e-commerce is changing at this crazy rapid rate. Customers are behaving differently. The biggest thing is that we know that brand loyalty is softening. People are trusting influencers. They're like trying new products just because somebody else told them that it's an amazing thing. And that's an interesting, for me, that's an interesting shift in consumer behavior, because that's storytelling, right? If someone's taking a product, talking about it, trying it on, explaining how it made them feel, that's storytelling and it's working. We also know that e-commerce has like shot through the roof. There's so much more activity online and so much more competition. So it's a little harder for everybody to make any noise. We need to make sure that your storytelling is in your brand and in your marketing. And the only way to do it well is to think creatively about how to do that. And we also know that social commerce is hotter than ever. So that means people are buying products directly off of, Facebook shops or Instagram or TikTok, instead of going to those brands' websites and shopping in the kind of old-fashioned way that we used to. So it's very interesting to think about what's happening online with consumers. It's almost like this weird return to the sort of shopping channel where the lady would be like, this is the bracelet and it's so awesome, because here we are with influencers sort of doing that thing and it's working. So it's interesting. I want you to just think about this in terms of, how do I get creative with my digital marketing strategy? Because I have to, right? And storytelling is a big part of it these days. And we just know that it works. It's the foundation of all the most successful blogs, and blogs are still so successful, of websites, influencer campaigns, podcasts are hotter than ever. This is totally real and really effective stuff. And it's all about stories. And definitely think about your favorite dinner party guests and the way they just completely light up the room or get everyone smiling, right? I bet they tell super awesome stories. And pause there, right? Think about those people, even in your family, when you get together for a family event or a holiday. Is there someone that comes that just kind of makes it better, right? Is there that person, and are they telling stories? Think about it. Okay, challenge number 2. Create your environment, create a creative environment. So this is literally not rocket science at all, and I know that, but being mindful of the space where you work and where you do your creative thinking is super important. Working in a space that makes you feel a certain way is just going to be conducive to allowing your creativity to shine. You do have control over this for sure. So kind of here we are again, asking about what lights you up. So I'm asking you to think about what your best space looks like. You can create this. No one will do this for you. You have to create your best, most creative space. And you will do your best work there. So it begins by auditing your environment, right? And this doesn't even matter if you work for an organization versus for yourself. Like, no employer is going to do this for you. Certainly, you have to take that little, corner of the world and make it your own. And it doesn't matter if you're the corner office with a view or this is your kitchen table. Like, wherever you are, make sure that the things around you, they matter to you. And it does all matter. Your color choice, the plants, like vision boards, the soundtrack behind you, how much sunlight you get, a dog on your lap. Like, for everyone, this looks so different, but get super granular. Think about what your best space looks like and create it. And like I said, no matter where you work from, you need to carve out a space that's your own professional, creative, inspirational, and welcoming corner of the world. And if you do it, you're gonna have a better time and you're gonna be more creative. So challenge number 3, moving right along. I think a big part of fostering creativity is just staying curious. So this is sort of going back to what I talked about, where for me in my life, I tend to just try and take action and make choices from a place of curiosity versus a place of stress. Definitely with our businesses, we tend to find comfort in really staying the course and staying in sort of a comfortable place. Coasting, we sort of get into this like cruise control mode. And unfortunately, stress is sometimes the thing that triggers us to take action more than anything else. So I just want to warn entrepreneurs to be wary of that, right? Once you start making money and things feel less stressful, it's easy to kind of like settle into cruise, but we don't want to do that. We want to stay curious. And in this same kind of mindset, let's think about movement. Too often we only make big moves or really drop the hammer on decisions when we're in a really bad position of stress, right? So for instance, and this might sound familiar for many of you, but if we've ever had to pivot our business model, or maybe it's a huge financial decision and that might impact, you might have to lay people off, or it might change the way you live your life, or maybe your family will be hurt by the decision in a different way. But you have to be careful that we don't want to make movement just because we're stressed, right? A stressful state of mind is one powered by fear and uncertainty. So the intensity will leave very little emotional room for your creativity to shine. So I guess what I'm trying to get at here, it feels like a lot of like scary talk, but it's not meant to be that. It's really just to remind you that stress is going to cause you to make a different kind of decision, whereas curiosity will allow you to think creatively about things. So just challenge yourself when you're feeling stressed and you've got to make these big decisions, and think about, am I making this decision from a stress point of view or from a creativity point of view? And try and switch that lens so that you're looking at it a different way. So my advice is just start thinking creatively and being curious now. Don't wait for trouble, right? Create movement from a place of curiosity. If you feel like you're sitting still, then there's a problem. Get curious. Creative problem solving. So like we've been talking about, without fail, stress will always encourage you to take the shortest path to the fastest gains. And decisions that come from a place of creative problem solving are often much more innovative. They're considerate of the long term. And for these reasons, they tend to be more successful. And remember that we're entrepreneurs, so creativity is in our everyday. And I talk to so many entrepreneurs all the time who say, oh, I'm just not, I don't have that mind. I'm just not creative, but it's just never true, right? It's our everyday. We are creatives. We created these business ventures, but we must stay creative in our space, right? And that is a challenge. It's not something that just happens for everybody. You have to challenge yourself to think creatively about problem solving, about innovating, about product development, about marketing, all of those different things. So I ask you, what's keeping you up at night? What are you thinking about when you're falling asleep? What are you daydreaming about when you're driving around in your car? Remember that back of your mind stuff, that might just be creativity knocking at the door. If you're in a static place, or if it's time to find some movement in your life or in your career or with your business. I love this idea that as entrepreneurs, we have this amazing ability to design a life we love through the work that we do. And for me, that's all about creativity. You get to just live this life for yourself, and there's no ceiling when you work for yourself too. You can make as much money as you want, you can design your own schedule, you can do all these amazing things, but you have to get there through creative ways, right? And if creativity helps you find success, then that's such a beautiful thing. So I'm going to wrap up here so we have lots of time to answer questions, but my final words are that if you embrace a creative approach to problem solving, you're really, truly going to tackle it differently. And this is really about, if you're figuring out how to get around, instead of figuring out how to get around a problem, creativity will challenge you to transform that problem or flip it into an opportunity. And that's just a perspective switching kind of thing to do. But for real, if you look at it that way, you'll definitely get there and have a more innovative and successful solution. So instead of saying the end or thank you for your time, I'm just going to say start. Just get started. Just start challenging yourself with those 3 different things I gave you to think more creatively, to actively start thinking about making decisions and movement from a place of curiosity instead of stress, and not hesitate, just literally get more creative and enjoy how it feels. Thank you very much. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Does anybody have any questions? You can just unmute yourself and ask Lindsay, or you can put it in the chat if you want.
Thanks, Alana. I'm looking at the chat here. Oh, you're welcome for the presentation. Thanks, everyone. Does anyone have any questions about some of the material I covered?
If you do think of something, you can always email myself or Lindsay. Oh, you got one. Can you expand on the publishing?
On the publishing, on my master's degree? Is that what you mean? I think the publishing references the master's degree I have in creative publishing. Is that what you're referring to? How to publish a product? Why don't you email me more specifically what you mean? Like, are you talking about publishing a book? My experience in publishing. I do have some experience in creative publishing with books and working as an editor. So I could answer those questions for you offline if you want to email me about it. I'm happy to, for sure. How can we, so there's a question here that says, how can we enhance our storytelling skill? I always wanted to, but I was never good at it. Any tips? I think the best advice I can give you on enhancing your storytelling skill is to really look at it from a point of, asking yourself, is this authentic? Is this like a real story? Do I feel passionate about what I'm saying? Particularly if we're talking about marketing, like I've been saying, there's this sort of like hashtag all the feels thing going on right now. And people are trusting influencer marketing, and people are looking at social media with like a really heavy-handed shopping hand. And so it means you have to be telling stories that resonate, that feel real, that show a little bit of who you are in your brand. That's all become super important. I hope that helps. It looks like someone agrees about having a conducive environment to enable creative thinking. And I really, if you even come to the innovation cluster, if you've been here before, you'll see that some of us have offices that like look a little different than everyone else. And I love seeing that, right? I love seeing how some people take a space and really make it their own. And there's so many good reasons to do that, but definitely it helps you with like, your mindset and creative thinking. And I think that's a really good thing. So there's another question, how to control stress? Will everything change dramatically in the term of creativity and goals? Oh my gosh, hold on a sec. How to control stress? Will everything? I think the best way to answer that is just to go back to what I was saying about making decisions from position of creativity versus a position of stress, right? Stress tends to make you want to find the fastest gains, or the fastest way to get to the gains. Whereas creativity allows you to think a little longer term about the solution and the problem solving. So it's sort of just about resetting yourself at that position. When you're feeling stressed, try and sort of check with yourself, pause and think about, is there another way to do this that's maybe less obvious or less impulsive, but allows me to think creatively about this problem? Jim is asking, what mistake do most business owners make? Mistake do most business owners make? Not using others as sounding boards for ideas. I think, so Jim's suggesting that maybe other business owners make the mistake that they don't use others as sounding boards. And creative brainstorming is one of the most powerful activities a startup can do. Like if you get your team together, if you invite friends and family, get together with other entrepreneurs. That's why the innovation cluster is so great, because when you're in here working with our other startups, it gives you these sounding boards, these different people with like-minded activities, right? So you have these people to talk to. And definitely talking about your ideas and not just keeping them stuck in your own head is so important, especially because if you're working with a team like you and you're coming up with ideas together, that's the absolute best way to get there for sure. Christina thinks storytelling requires authenticity and vulnerability. And I totally agree with that, Christina. I think like we keep coming back to this, but storytelling is a huge part of, I mean, it's a creative activity, right? Storytelling, whether it's just like a conversation at the dinner table, like we said, or some content you're creating for a social media campaign for your product. It's literally so important to be real and to feel real because everybody wants to resonate with something, right? And everyone on social wants to feel like they're a part of something and they want to feel seen. And if they can identify themselves in something you're saying, that's super important. Okay. We've got one more comment here. Where's the border of creativity in a startup? Are there any limits? I mean, it's a good question. And I think it depends on the type of business, but I think it's important to use a creative lens on every part of your business and to use it responsibly, I guess is the answer to that. Like there is some ideas are not great ideas, and that's just true, right? And thinking creatively, you also have to be sort of like on the agenda of, is this a safe bet for my business? Is this going to make money? Are people going to like this? Are consumers going to resonate with this? Like you have to still ask all those questions with a creative mindset. But I think there's no border. I would never want to say that. Creativity lets you kind of like, blow the rails off and have some fun and take things where they need to go. But I think as long as you're not sort of being too crazy, I guess is the answer. But yeah, no, I don't think there's a limit. I think that's probably it for now. Okay.
Yeah. If nobody else has any questions, then we're going to wrap up now, give you guys an opportunity to eat some lunch before you get back to work. Thank you so much, Lindsay, for doing this workshop today. Again, if anybody has any questions, you can just shoot me an email. This is being recorded, so it'll be posted on our social media and our YouTube. And thank you to everybody for attending today. And I hope everybody has a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.